I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, October the 14th, brought to you in part by Macrocin by Bimeda. Macrocin is a bold, straight shooting telithromycin injection that does what it's supposed to do for you, for your cattle, and most importantly for your bottom line with no BS. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards in Carthage, Missouri. They've got another big sale here for the regular Monday feeder cattle auction. It starts at 6 o'clock in the morning. They're expecting around 6,000 head. They'll probably underestimate quite a bit, but they'll have another good sale, and they'll have well-tested weights from 300 all the way up to 1,000 pounds, both steers and heifers, and all kinds of quality levels and conditions on them. But those that are interested in having their calves on one of the value-added specials, they've got one coming up December the 5th. If you want to be on that December 5th value-added special, you got to be weaning your calves this week. So they put that on their calendar to make sure people, they verify that those cattle are weaned and that they've had all their shots and they're on the JRS program there. But that's very important to them, and those value-added sales, they always bring a pretty decent premium to what the regular market is. But check that out at joplinstockyards.com. And if you want to view or bid their sales, go to DVAuction.com. It's fall, y'all, and boy, you can feel it in the air. I got a little chill in the mornings and in the evenings. I got the huge temperature swings. 50 or 60 degree temperature swings at least. These sale barns are noisy with bawling calves. You can't hear yourself think if you're out in the pens before the sales. You've got sticky flies that are getting pretty tame, guys, and then you've got all the smells of the season. It just seems like they're that much more fresh in the fall of the year because it's a little bit sticky there. And of course you've got all the smells. You got the manure, you got the dust, you got the greasy cheeseburgers, and you've got the cigarette smoke in most of them, and I know some of them are non-smoking now, but there's some cigarette smoke around there somewhere. I remember probably 30 years ago whenever I'd went out to big sale barns in the Midwest and in the Northern Plains, and I'd come back and was telling my father about it because he'd traded in sale barns and been in sale barns all over the Southwest, and I told him that there was sale barns up there that were non-smoking in the sale arena, and he didn't believe me. And he said, "Oh, bullshit, if I wanted to smoke a carton of cigarettes while I'm sitting there buying cattle," he said, "nobody would say nothing." And I think that's probably the truth. I was in a sale barn in mid-Missouri one time. A guy was sitting right under a non-smoking sign, and he was smoking, but he was inhaling these calves too at monster prices, and he probably smoked 2 packs there during the sale. Nobody said a word about it. But it's just the fall of the year. We're getting a big fall run. We're getting these long strings of fancy calves off these ranches in the Northern Plains, especially in the Dakotas and Nebraska and places like that. Wyoming, Montana, and they're fancy calves. They've done the best job raising them, but for the most part they bring them in balling, and they tell small producers all the time that they need to wean their calves, like the wean back sale I was telling you about at Joplin Regional Stockyards on December the 5th. All those calves have to be weaned 45 days, and a lot of people want calves weaned 60 days now. But these long-established ranches that have the best genetics, a lot of times they bring them in balling. I mean, they've got lots of country out there, but they don't really have facilities to wean that many calves at once, and it's just easier for them to bring them in. And if they will give them at least 1 round, and especially if they give them 2 rounds of shots, most of the time, our buyers will just pretty much inhale them. And I'm going to give you some monster prices on mostly balling calves here at the end of this report, and you're going to see why a lot of people choose not to wean them. But a lot of people got sick calves, especially these calves, these put together calves that are bought in small groups and then put together and sent to new addresses, they're having a lot of problems with them, and they just have it this time of the year. They've got a lot of BVD, and they've got just calves that get to be chronics and really have no value after that. And we've got great medicines, but it seems like as much better as our medicines get, the bugs that cause them to be sick just get that much smarter, and it's just kind of tough whenever you're dealing with sick calves, and then you got the big temperature swings, and you see all your elementary school children got the sniffles and they're sick from being around other sick kids and the big temperature swings. Well, it's the same thing for the calves that are coming into bigger groups there. But last week, you remember I went out to Rapid City, South Dakota with a bunch of representatives from both RCAF and the United States Cattlemen's Association. There was a lot of producers there, a lot of media there. Not necessarily your top ag media, because they might have been told not to be there, but there was a lot of people there, and we were having a rally in support of Harriet Hageman's resolution to do away with the mandatory EID tags that's supposed to be starting on November the 5th on breeding stock or all intact stock that's over 18 months old, and then of course bison, and then rodeo cattle and exhibition cattle and those kinds of things. And we're totally against that. It's going to hurt small producers, going to continue to drive them out of business. It's government overreach. We're not sure why that they think they need to know exactly how many cattle everybody has and where they're at, or be able to track them. It's not doing anything for disease traceability. It's just basically replacing the metal tag that was in them already. But you can scan those cattle a little bit easier. Of course, anybody else with a drone and a scanner can scan them also. And then as technology evolves, they'll be able to just run a scan over a big pasture full of cattle, maybe give you a bill for carbon credits, maybe give you a bill for taxes, maybe see how much you're affecting the climate or something like that. It's not a good deal. And then of course we know that all classes, the rule on all classes will be coming shortly after, and that is impossible. So why even get started with this? But of course your big beef establishment is all for this mandatory EID, because the big beef establishment is in your packing, in your wholesale beef, even in your big corporate feeders. Of course, all that'll be done before it comes to them, and then they'll get to take advantage of anything that will help them with these EID tags coming in. And you may think, well, big beef establishment, they're all for USDA and anything that USDA wants to do. Not true. Also, we saw this week that USDA had come out again, and they've come out probably 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 times during the Magoo administration, and they were wanting to ask more questions, and they were wanting to dig more in to strengthening P&S rules again, and try to stir up a little bit more market transparency and things like that. Well, big beef establishment is totally against that. They are against that. In fact, NCBA come out with a statement saying they were totally against this, and they don't want USDA sticking their nose into the trade. And the Meat Institute, which you guys are saying, who's the Meat Institute? Well, the Meat Institute is the American Meat Institute and the North American Meat Institute. They've come together to get even stronger, and they come out with a statement saying that they don't like them sticking their nose in there, saying that the USDA is trying to assert government control over the free market. That's kind of what we were saying about the mandatory EID tax. But they don't want, in other words, trying to say that they're fearing that the government wants to come in and put limits on AMAs, which are alternative marketing agreements, which to you and me means formulas, and they don't want any limits put on formulas. And you know that the formulas have gotten to be such a big part of our fed trade that we don't know what cattle are worth anymore. We trade such a small amount in the cash market, and I don't care what you say, the lion's share of those AMAs or formulas still base their price off that little smidge of cash trade that we do. And then of course your packers are manipulating, they're not reporting right, they're just buying the cheaper, plainer cattle on the cash, live cash FOB price that makes up your weighted averages, and they're doing anything they can to limit what they can control, which is what they give for that little dab of cash trade that they do every week. And it's such a battle every week for just a few that participate in it. And then most of your packers still, they want to use it, and but they don't want to participate in it, especially at any level that makes any kind of sense. And of course, if you remember me talking about the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act, that's what we were trying to get done several years ago, but it got lost in committee in Washington, D.C. But you know, the Magoo administration has always said that they wanted to look into that and see more about it, and they kind of wanted to blame, of course, your big packers and those for a lot of the inflation, food inflation, meat inflation that went on. And we thought maybe it was a chance to use that to maybe force these packers to come in and then maybe put mandates on a minimum percentage of cash trade, or do something to give us a little bit of competition and a little bit of transparency. But they do not want that at all. And you think, my gosh, that Meat Institute sounds strong. Yes, they are. They've got a huge board of directors, and it's basically a representative from any major packer, wholesaler, even down to your retailer. I mean, it is all beef establishment right there, and other meats too. I mean, poultry's in it, of course, pork's in it, and everything. Just they want to control all of that and keep it under control. And you think, well, I thought then we put the B into the National Cattlemen's Association and included the beef, then the beef was in there on that. Not so much. They really don't want, they want to come over here with the Meat Institute. They just put the B in there so that they can use their influence to run the cattle industry also. And they're doing a pretty good job of it. But let's talk about your board for last week. October live cattle futures, Monday was up 47 cents, Tuesday was up $1, Wednesday was down 27, Thursday up 97 cents, Friday down 57, and the October live cattle contract ended the week at 188.60. December contract ended the week at 187.57. Your October feeder cattle, Monday was down 77, Tuesday up 147, Wednesday down $1.05, Thursday back up $1, Friday down 52, so down, up, down, up, down. And your October feeder cattle ended the week at 249.75, which is right in there tight, of course, with your index levels, because it's going to meet up with your CME cash feeder cattle index at the end of the month. But your November contracts are within a nickel, 100 of what your October is. So I guess we're not going to see a whole lot, or not expecting a lot of change in the market till the end of the year. We hope that's true, because calves are selling really good, and yearlings too. Of course, you're getting a mix of calves and yearlings in that 7 to 899 pound index there. But December corn ended the week at 415 3/4. It come off some little spark that it saw here, just a little bit, you know, as harvest come out, and we had the port strike scare and all that, but starting to come back down towards $4 there. November beans ended the week at 10.05 1/2. Kansas City hard red winter wheat for December ended the week at 6.04 1/2, and it continues to be very volatile. Fat cattle trade, up through Thursday, we had sold 60,100 head negotiated fed cattle in your 5 area feeding region, which is fairly typical. We would like to see more towards 100,000, but we don't hardly ever get that anymore, and it just continues to fall and fall and fall, kind of like what I was talking about. It's the only time we really get to see what cattle are worth. And of course, beef establishment will tell you that AMAs or formula is the only way that you can really get paid for your higher quality cattle. No, they can pay you more for the cattle if they would. They just don't want to. And it's just a way for them to keep a lid over prices there. They might throw you a little bone here and there, but they're going to do all they can to keep the price that you can actually see and the cash price as much under wraps as they can. But live prices of fat steers and heifers in your 5-area feeding region last week ranged from 186 to 188 up through Thursday afternoon. Your weighted average through that part of the week was 187.08, up a little bit. I told you I thought it'd be just a little bit higher. It was about 19 cents a hundred higher, but that's not the end of the week. We still got to get your Friday sales. We got a little bit of the Friday sales, but they weren't in the weighted average yet. I'll give you that on our next report. Dress sales range from 293 to 296, really narrow spread for them, and that's $1 to $4 lower. And your weighted average on dress steers was about 10 cents lower, 100 there at 295.90. But on Friday, we saw some more trade, not significant, but we saw a little more trade, and we saw a little bit of competition. And about the only way you find any competition or market transparency anymore is with Central Stockyards Fed Cattle Exchange, which on the Friday morning sale, we actually got to see what cattle bring in Colorado. We never get to see what goes on in Colorado because they are under restrictions there. It's where we can't see. There's not enough trade activity in Colorado, even though it's one of our 5 areas, to see what's going on in there. But we did see on the Fed Cattle Exchange, they sold cattle live FOB at 188, and that was the highest we saw them sell anywhere in Nebraska or Iowa. But that was achieved through competitive bidding there on the Fed Cattle Exchange. And then we saw Texas sell beef on dairy cattle at 188, bid the grid, and that grid is FOB the feed yard. So we got to see that. And then they sold cattle in Texas, Iowa, and Kansas just live FOB at 187. And so we saw that, and a little bit more direct trade there. Iowa sold 2,100 head on Friday, 27,700 for the week, 187 to 188 live, 296 dress. Nebraska sold 4,100 on Friday, 27,700, exactly the same as Iowa. They used to sell a lot more in Nebraska than they did Iowa live, but not anymore. But live price 187 to 188. And dress sales at 297 there. Kansas didn't have any confirmed sales on Friday, 9,700 though for the week, and that's kind of on the high side for them. Negotiated. Texas sold 400 head on Friday, and they were the ones in the Fed Cattle Exchange. They'd sold only 1,650 in the whole state of Texas. All those feedlots you see in there, only 1,650 sold negotiated. Any podunk sale barn would have that this time of the year, but they were at 187, and like I said, they were the ones that I told you about on the Fed Cattle Exchange. But we'll see a little bit more late Friday sales go into your week's roundup, and I'll give you that on the next feeder flash. Box beef cutout values gained significant ground last week. Choice cuts, your weighted average on all of last week's sales, were up 834 at 308.43. Your select weighted average on all of last week's select sales up 427 at 289.20. Choice select spread on the weighted average was about 19 and a quarter, and it was all based on 616 loads of cuts, grinds, and trim. Your slaughter last week indeed did have that small disappointing number. We were in fear all week that they were going to have slaughter less than 600,000 cattle. They only slaughtered 586,000. That is minuscule. That's nothing. And so that was 25,000 less than the disappointing week we had before, and was 30,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DVAuction based on an 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states, ended the week at 249.08. That was up 78 cents compared to the end of the previous week. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index, 250.05. Your cash sales in your sale barns last week, your feeder weights going right into the feedlot, whether they were big calves or yearlings, sold from steady to $2 higher. Calves, your middleweight calves from 4.5 up to 700 pounds, $5 to $10 higher, especially if they were weaned and they had a lot of quality to them, which that's the bulk of the big strings right now. But your peewee calves weighing under 5 for sure, and mostly under 4.5, were sharply higher. I mean like 10 to 30 higher. That's what everybody wants right now, especially on the steers. But your National BeefWire stick-out sale of the day late last week or over the weekend was a special Saturday sale at Imperial Auction Market there in Imperial, Nebraska. That over 4,000 head there. Look at your best tested weights. 462 head of full-weight steers, average 456 at 334.12 on your weighted average price. 569 steers weighed 564 on the average, with a weighted average price of 305.18 on your 8 weights. Move up to your 8 weights. 644 head of 8 weight steers averaged 838 with a weighted average price of 255.47. Those are all very impressive. Heifers, 797 head of your 7 weight heifers averaged 768, weighted average price 243.83, and 1,118 head of 8 weight heifers averaged 827 at 237.06. Give you several individual quotes from all around. How about Edina, Missouri? Edina Livestock. They don't get a lot of cattle there, but they get really good cattle there, and that is a neat place. That's an old wagon factory where they have that sale barn, and they are DVAuction broadcasters, guys. You ought to check them out sometime. They sold 63 steers that weighed 873 and bring 262.85. Wow, that'd be some Southern Iowa farmer feeders, I'm pretty sure. How about Fort Pierre Livestock Auction in Fort Pierre, South Dakota? On Friday, they sell 122 steers, weighed 451 at 375. And we're getting back up there to prices like that. Now you say, well, I heard of some calves bringing $4. Yeah, there's calves bringing $4, all the way down into Florida and places where they're not troubled by the hurricane, but I'm not sure there's been a lot of sales there last week. But yeah, there's some $4 calves around, 1 or 2, 3 or 4, maybe a bumper pull trailer load. But I like to tell you about a string of them. How about Crawford Livestock Market in Crawford, Nebraska? They sell 81 steer calves, weighed 568, and bring 323.50, weighing over 550, guys, and pushing 6. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere late last week or over the weekend in your Macrison, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of St. Ange Livestock in St. Ange, South Dakota. I'm going to show you half of them, but there was 168 steer calves, weighed 708, high-end quality, fresh off their mamas, milk mustaches at 307.50, weighing over 7, guys. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.